Hey, it's Tom Karadza, and we are starting this podcast with Corrine Sandler. And I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name properly. Am I pronouncing it properly?
You are, Corrine. Yes.
Okay, Corrine, because you're born in South Africa. And
Born
I
in
didn't know if I'm supposed to pronounce it a different way. Like, is there a special way or something? But Corrine, got it.
You got it. It's actually spelled the French way with double R, so you
Oh,
got
you're pretty fancy. You're fancy then that way.
it.
Listen, I was just saying before we got going here that I listened to there's like a TED talk. It's about 16 minutes long that I think you did at Queen's University. Am I right? At
Yes,
Queen's.
that's right.
And
That's right.
you kind of open up about yourself there. And I appreciate you doing this because I think you put yourself out there a lot. Like it sounds like in the first part of your life you didn't, but now you just seem to throw yourself out there and share a lot about yourself. I I want to um, let everyone know your story, but
Mhm.
I want to ask with this question first.
Yeah.
Why do you think people feel that they're inadequate? Why do you think that people walk around thinking they're inadequate? Because I got to tell you, in this business that we're
Yeah.
in, we talk to people about investing in real estate, and somehow magically that gets them to open up about their whole lives. Like, we're talking to them about real estate, but they will tell us, well, I need to get into this because of this, this, and this. And they end up telling us about their whole lives. So you hear people's story. And I will tell you, 90% of the people that I speak with have some feelings of inadequacy.
Yes. Yes.
Where do you think, where does that come from in all of us?
You know what? I don't think it's a bad thing, to be quite honest. I think that if we didn't feel inadequate in some aspect of our life, I think we'd have these enormous egos and just walk around thinking we know everything. So there's a bit of a difference, I think, between feeling, inadequate, and having kind of this imposter syndrome, right? And I think there's a difference there. But to answer your question specifically, if you're feeling inadequate about something, I used to feel just give you a personal story. I used to feel very intimidated by people who had a lot of money. And even when I made a lot of money, I still felt intimidated by people who had a lot of money. And the point is, you got to push yourself to get over that, right? And you realize that everyone has inadequacies, right? And nobody's perfect, and everyone has their stories, and everyone's been through, you know,
Shit.
exactly. And and the minute I was able to talk about it so openly, so to be okay, let me be completely authentic on here. Like for many years, so I've run multiple businesses and I've sold businesses, and yes, I've been successful that way. But for many years on my LinkedIn profile, I had a degree, because I was absolutely ashamed and felt completely inadequate to say that I dropped out of university. And I did. Like I dropped out of university, and eventually, after facing that and realizing people actually admired me more for what I had accomplished, having not been an academic. um just be authentic,
Mm.
so
That's
now.
interesting. Like, I wonder, so you had that on your LinkedIn profile because you thought if I didn't have that, I wasn't the equal, or people wouldn't see me equal in some capacity. But by having that, I had a degree on my LinkedIn profile, I was okay. And that was important to you to be okay in the minds of others.
Correct. It's all about perception, because at the end of the day, perception's reality, right? So I felt like people would perceive me as less than. And that's the biggest issues that occur. I mean, I'm no psychologist by no means, or anything like that. I'm just talking from my own personal experience in that sense. So yeah, I mean, it was there, and because I wanted, I don't know, maybe it was I wanted, thought people would respect me more,
Mhm.
and people might give me, pay more attention to what I'm doing. For whatever reason it wasn't other people's issues, it was my own.
Oh, sure. Of all for we all
Of
have
course,
we all
nobody ever sure whether
okay,
I had.
let me ask you a question because I think we all have that in different ways, and I've definitely had that before. And I don't know how I don't think I'm perfect at it. I've overcome a lot of that, but it's over years and years. Um, why did you feel like you were you talk about imposter syndrome. Why did you feel like, if you reflect back on your life and if you've beaten down most of that out of your life, perhaps, why do you think you had that? Where did that come from?
Where did imposter syndrome come from?
Mm,
That's a long story. I mean, it
yeah.
really boils down to, if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts, is growing up in South Africa. I grew up in a very chauvinistic community and society. Okay, so small community where um, it was all about kind of I'm not really sure I want to get into this on the podcast, but I'll tell you, we might decide to cut it out or we might not. But
You decide. You decide.
okay,
Your call.
okay.
Your
But the
call.
bottom line was, I had an older brother, and everything was about my older brother, because it was all about what he had to do, and he, etc.
Sure. Sure.
That's how it was in those days.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like, Corrine, you got to get married really young, have babies, and make sure you marry a
Yeah.
man that's rich and is educated. Okay, and my brother was like, you got to be the breadwinner. So just believe it or not, it was only 50 years ago when I was born, 52 years ago, but still, that was the society then.
Wow. How much has
And
changed? Yeah. 52. You're right. Because that doesn't seem like that
no,
long ago,
no.
but how times have changed. But sorry, go on, go on. Okay, so that
So,
was your
so,
path, to be
so that was
approved by
my
the
path.
family. That was your path.
Yeah, and I always felt I was, as a child, I was always given materially in that sense, but I was never given the attention that I seeked, like my brother got, in a sense. So I always looked at it as I wasn't good enough, um, and that kind of, it stays with you for years and years and years and years.
Hmm.
And then I always felt I needed to prove myself. So to some extent, it helped me, because I really did prove myself and wanted to, but for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
Um, and then when you just start to talk about it, and it's so irrelevant now, and
Yeah, sure.
my
Yeah, yeah.
parents
Looking
now
back,
put
yeah.
me, yeah, like now I'm the one they idolize and put on the pedestal, which is irrelevant. I don't care. But that's, I believe, where a lot of it started from.
Hmm.
Um,
A need for approval.
the need for approval, and not believing you are good enough to be a success and to be who you
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
Now, there's also a lot of people, I have to tell you, I had a coach, a great coach, who said imposter syndrome is actually good. And he said, because imposter syndrome drives you to be better. Like, if you feel less
Yeah,
than,
yeah.
for a lot of people, it actually drives you to push yourself to which it did for me, right? In that sense. So I don't know what's right or wrong, and
No, it's
but
so interesting you say that. You're bringing back this weird thought I had. I don't think I've ever shared this before, but when I was in the tech industry, I remember learning that some of the big tech players, like Larry Ellison, who was at one point one of the richest men in the world, he was the CEO and founder of Oracle Corporation, and then like Steve Jobs. I had the most perverse thought. I always wondered, I learned that they didn't have a father figure in their lives. And I always thought, oh, does if you don't have a father figure, does that mean you like are trying to prove yourself so much to somebody out there that you go on to build these crazy large companies? And then I had this perverse thought where I'm like, well, I've had a father figure. Does that mean I'm not able to?
yeah,
Like I don't do you know how your mind works?
yes,
Like I know
of course.
that's completely embarrassing. Like how embarrassing is that to think? But that's where my mind went. I'm like, oh, does that mean I'm predisposed to not be able to do something really successful? It's just like your mind is just going to these weird places,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it does.
So
And you can take it for what it's worth. For some people, right? Some people, it affects them, in some ways, and others it doesn't. But for me, it really affected me growing up, where it was, and even then it was, like, children don't talk. You keep quiet, children don't talk, and girls don't play soccer. I mean, I all I wanted to do was play soccer, right? I was a tomboy, but there was no girls soccer growing
How
up in South
dare
Africa.
you? How dare you?
Right,
Yes. Yeah.
right. So that was, I just was constantly felt being held back and pushed down, and definitely came from that, um in terms of my imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Huh. And so then now how do you okay, so you managed to, you kind of figured that out about yourself and you got through it. I don't what now? So now do you try to, because I'm trying to think like what has really served me over the years is I try to live by principles. Like I've identified some principles that really are meaningful to me. And as long as I'm living by those principles, I feel good about myself. I feel positive. I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
any less or more to anyone else. And that's really helped me. That's like my North Star, living
Yep.
by these principles. Do you have like a safety net or something that helps you live now and stay true to yourself? I'm asking you I know
Yeah.
I'm asking you weird questions, so I don't expect that you have these perfect answers, Corrine. I'm totally
No,
putting you on the spot. I did not prep you for this.
no,
So,
not at all. I
okay.
was like, okay, we're going to talk about real estate. Great. Okay. So I have three things. Three things. I'm completely different to who I was, but the three things I always have, which I call them my core values right now, and that is freedom before fortune, and I live by that. So um, if I get pulled into something that I know is going to take up 20 hours of my week, and I'm not going to be able to walk my dog for 2 hours a day, forget it. I'm not doing it. My freedom's more important. um the other one, of course, is integrity, and then the third one, which you'll laugh at, but it's I have a question that I ask myself, and it's will it make me dance? And at my stage of my life, it's like I only do things that are going to make me dance. So even coming on this podcast, I was like, I used to do hundreds of these speaking engagements and all this crap, and I haven't done them for ages. And I was like, this is going to be fun. Like, will it make me dance? In other words, when you dance, you think about it, you have no inhibitions, you free, you feel good. And I ask myself that question often when things, I have to make a decision. And if the answer is no, then it's no.
Wow. Yeah, that's smart. And Nick, my brother, will often say, like, if it's not a hell yeah about something,
Mm,
it's a no, because
yeah.
sometimes life presents you with so much. And it seems like you've kind of figured that out about yourself. You're a completely, interesting person, Corrine. You've got an interesting story to yourself. The book that you wrote, Wake Up or Die,
Yes.
and I somewhere on one of the sites I read about you or something in brackets or something, it said something about art of war. Like it was
Mm,
like take on what's the and I have to admit I had not read, I didn't know about your book until today. So I apologize. That's on
no, don't
me.
worry.
Um, but can you tell me why the book and maybe the premise about the book? I'm now interested.
Of course, sure. So, first of all, the book was written, to be honest, more of a, as and to be used more of a marketing a tool
Sure.
for my company when I was very active in the company.
You're
But
speaking to too much. We're real estate and we're marketers. So
okay,
like
I
we
don't
get
do
it. We get it. We get
okay.
it.
But the premise of the book, I used to read The Art of War. I've read every section of The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and I just love that. And his whole premise is that you can only win a war if you have the best intelligence. It doesn't matter if you have the largest army in the world or the best weapons. It's those that have the greatest intelligence are the ones that will win. So I took his book and I wrote it in business terms. In other words, you want to win in business. I mean, business is a war today, right? And if you want to win in business, that's what you need. You need the greatest intelligence, um, and that aligned with my company, which was Fresh Intelligence, which was a market research company that I had, right, which is what we do. So that's kind of was the premise of the book. I still live my life by to some degree with Sun Tzu. I think that probably every problem in the world today is caused by ignorance. And it's just people being ignorant of whether it's ignorance and greed. I always say ignorance and greed, I think, are the biggest two problems in the world today. And if everybody would just take time to get more knowledgeable and on numerous issues, the world would be a lot better place. And I don't refer to academics. I mean, go get a degree, but I read a lot.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm digressing out, but that was The Art of War, and that was the book Wake Up or Die.
Sometimes I wonder about that, like why, because I think about the same thing. If kind of like if only people would get a bit more educated on certain issues, the answers to me become very clear on what we can do as a community and maybe as a nation or as a group of people or to our neighbors. And I sometimes struggle with trying to figure out why people don't get a bit more of an information advantage on things in their lives. And I don't really know if I have the answer. The only thing I've been able to come up with has been that people are busy and you're trying to pay the bills. And if you have responsibilities and a house to pay for, you don't have time to kind of figure things out. But I guess the point of view I'm coming from, Corrine, is I'm always thinking about the system of money. And I personally believe it's skewed against the middle class, that the way the money systems work is skewed to whoever's closest to the money printer, which usually means C-level corporations. And I kind of discovered that real estate was like this weird way that the typical Canadian or average person could get close to the money printer. Because by them getting a mortgage on a property, they're actually creating money just like the big corporations get access to money. And it was like this weird hack for me. And it's kind of the basis of Rockstar. It was like, wow, if you are a real estate investor, not only are you investing in real estate, which is kind of cool, you're hacking the money system. And that came from a lot of years of kind of studying the money system and trying to figure things out. And I really feel it's been a key in my own personal freedom. And sometimes I do get frustrated when people don't spend the time to try to think about things and maybe how simple changes in their lives can make big changes in the results they have or the way they live. Now I'm digressing. Now you got me going off on a
Yeah,
tangent.
no, but like, you're right. I mean, there's no question about it. I don't think it's so much that we don't have time. I think it's that we don't want to.
You think so?
I do. I think that there's a lot of indoctrination in the world today, and a lot of just followers, and people need a leader that they can just follow, and they, instead of kind of learning both sides and understanding, um because you don't, there's just, in order to tolerate other, whether it's ethnic groups or political groups or whatever it is, there's just a little bit of understanding and listening that needs to go with that, you know and I say this coming from and being brought up in the apartheid era
Mhm.
in South Africa. So I've been through it, true, you know, turmoil and democracy, and seeing people flee, and I left, right? And um but I think, having learned to see the other side in a different viewpoint than I did when I was 26 years old and living there and being petrified and wanting to leave, has made me realize how easy it is to do. It really is easy to do, and I think it's just lack of wanting to. It's easy. I mean, Tom, let's be honest. It's much easier to just have your beliefs, your religion, and your attitudes than understanding someone else's, right?
Yeah, it makes it easier just to, and you're taking me back to your talk now, but it's easier just to judge people then because you just don't have to think. You can just judge. I'm just laughing because so much throughout history, and I think, my own family, my father comes from a place called Croatia, and that part of the world has a history where people quickly judge each other based on what religion you are or what part of the land you were born on, and you're quickly just judged. But there's so much nuance, and yeah.
So I'll tell
Well,
you a quick story. I might digress in this a bit, but this was a breaking point for me. My oldest daughter, who's 22 now, was 6 years old. She had just started a grade one, and I'd put her into French immersion. And typical mother, I'm driving in my minivan, and she's at the back, and like, how was first day of school, and all excited. And she's like, "Oh, mommy, I met a new girl, and her name is Grace." Now, may put it into perspective, but the name Grace was an African name in South Africa. Not a white name, an African name in South Africa. Um, it just happened to be so. So I turned around and I went, "Oh, is she a black girl, Ash? You know? And she said, I don't know, Mom. I didn't really look at her skin. And that was a breaking point for me. I was just, the way I had been brought up, you got to understand, with blinkers on. I'm
Sure.
actually
Yeah,
making a
yeah.
documentary about this now, but that's besides the point. That I only was able to see color, right?
Hmm.
And how important it was not to. And I was just like, oh
Yeah.
my God,
It called out some of your own
yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was so grateful that my kids didn't have that judgment
What
that I
what
grew up with.
you know, I grew up in Canada, like in Mississauga. Think about that. Like, think about how like kind of safe and simple it is to grow up in a place like Mississauga, kind of a boring suburb of Toronto, right? But when you said you were 26 and you were scared in South Africa,
Right.
what were you scared of?
Crime. Oh, there was well, during a few years before that, obviously, during you know, when Nelson Mandela was released, and then there was, you know, all that was going on. There was a lot of talk about, you know, taking the white man's house, and taking the white man's job, and, you know, all of that. Um, that, I have to be honest, that didn't really. I wasn't really fearful from that perspective, because he was the most incredible man and saved the country, Mandela, in terms of what he did and the way he actually embraced all the ethnic groups, etc., to come together. But what happened was, it didn't really happen, and it still hasn't happened in South Africa fast enough in terms of the equality. So there is enormous amount of crime. I mean, just to give you an idea, I think there's 70, 80 murders a day in Johannesburg. I think we have that a year in the whole of Canada. Um, like when I tell people I carried a gun, right? I was nervous. My dad used to travel. I'd stay at home by myself with my mom, and we were scared because the crime is just really insane there. The break-ins, the robbery, the theft, and the murder. So yeah, I mean, we live behind um, 3 security gates, high walls, barbed wire. People still live like that there now. And living in that type of fear is when I came to Canada and I knew I could go to sleep with my front door open. I cannot. I have to tell you, to this day, I cannot. I have to lock my door. I don't have an alarm anymore, but I have to lock my door. So that inbred fear in you, it, you know, takes years and years and years to leave. And I'm going back now for the first time. I'm taking my children back in December. I'm only going to Johannesburg for 2 days, but I have to tell you, I am nervous. I am a little bit nervous about going back and just making sure that my kids are safe, because we don't know how lucky we have at living in a country like this, where you can go for a walk outside. You just cannot do that there. People don't realize the extent of the crime in Johannesburg.
So when I complain about Canada and how it could be better, I should keep my relative thinking hat on, thinking how lucky we are here. So I'm like, you know why? Because I'm very guilty sometimes of criticizing Canada, especially in the last
I
maybe
know.
5 years. And to me, I feel okay with it because I'm like, okay, relatively speaking, Canada's still better than places maybe like South Africa, like you're saying. But when I see simple things that could be better in this country, I'm like, I want to talk about them. And then
Can
people
I
will think I'm criticizing Canada, and then maybe I am. So now I'm lost. I'm like, do I criticize this country or do I not? What, from your eyes, am I allowed to criticize Canada, or should I not? There's no right
absolutely
answer.
not?
There's no,
Absolutely not. No, no.
no.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you something. Honestly, Tom, I was listening to a podcast. I don't know when you recorded it, and I won't mention names. It was a couple of weeks ago, maybe you recorded it. I was walking my dog and listening to it yesterday. And I actually switched it off because it was so negative. I actually did. Because as an immigrant coming to Canada, this is the greatest country in the world. Yes, we have issues. Every country does. But trust me, I have seen like what it does. I mean, a quarter of our population in 2030 is going to be immigrants. And you know what it's given me and most people who came, the freedom that, yes, our healthcare has more issues now, but still, you know, the opportunity to have North America at our, you know, at our border, and to have capitalism and to make the
Yeah.
money that
Yeah.
we do. It's an amazing place to bring up kids. It's an amazing place for the elderly. I kind of say Canada has socialistic views, but a capitalistic kind of economy, and from that perspective, as an immigrant, it is a
Wonderful.
it really is. I've lived
Mhm.
in England, I've lived in Europe, I've lived, and I can say that it is, yeah. I'm not going to stay here forever. It will always be my home because I can't handle the winters anymore. But it's a phenomenal, phenomenal country. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I wonder if it comes from just, yeah, I have more time on my hands, and then all of a sudden you occupy yourself with problems that maybe you shouldn't. But that's interesting to hear that
No, I think
I need to be happy about Canada, Corrine. You're reminding me to be very grateful for. Listen, I don't exist without this country. Like, my mom's Scottish. She came here. She meets my dad, who's
yeah.
Croatian, at Palais Royal off Lakeshore Avenue in Toronto. They met
Wow.
each other dancing there, and Nick and I are products of this country. So it is genuinely unfair for me to be critical of a country that gave me my existence. So yeah,
I think it's because you've never seen worse.
maybe.
I don't know if I can say that in a sense, or you take it for granted. I think it's just taken for granted,
Yeah.
which is
Mhm.
great, in that sense. But um,
Yeah, no, and
anyway,
I do have friends who challenge me on that. They're like, Tom, like, relatively speaking, Canada's amazing. What are you talking about? And I agree with them, but then my comeback to that is, well, why don't we just do some things that make it even better? That's all. That's what, I guess, where I'm coming from. It's like, I know this place is pretty great, but now I'm getting frustrated because it seems very simple to make it even better. And so when people tell me, like, be happy with Canada as it is, I'm always like, well, it just seems so obvious that we could just do this and it would be even better. But I guess then that's the challenge for me, to step up and do something about it, then, instead of just talking or complaining. Now I'm, yeah. So you're calling me out, Corrine. Great. I like it. I like it. I was going to ask you something else, but did I cut you off there? Were you about to say something?
no, no, no. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So now I just want to switch gears a little bit. Now that I have a couple friends that are going to be so happy you told this. You explained Canada this way to me. By the way, they're going to be so happy that you did this. um, Life. At the beginning part of your life, it feels like you lived in a scary place and you were having thoughts and you had imposter syndrome and maybe feelings of inadequacy. Now you mentioned that your parents look to you like with pride, it sounds like, and they're very, it sounds like they couldn't be happier for you, if I'm reading this properly. Is life just a perfect balance? Did you have to go through the negativity at the beginning to get the positivity now? Like, is life just a perfect balance? If anyone's in a negative spot now, does that mean there's a chance, with the right thinking, and the right actions, that there's great times ahead? Is life just like that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's cyclical, right? But I also think your attitude is so important. I've always been, and I've been through, and I'm happy to talk about anything you want to talk about that's out in the public domain. That was on my TED talk. But I always see the glass half full, not half empty, no matter what. I always see positivity, and I think that
Even in your 20s and your early 30s, because I think you said at the age of 38, do I have the age right? At 38, you finally came out as a gay woman,
yes, yes,
correct?
that is correct. Yes.
So did you, even on the years of your 20s and early 30s, did you still at that time have a glass half full attitude, or no?
Yeah, I did. I did. I left with everything. I'm just that kind of person. When I left South Africa with two suitcases and my entire life savings at that point, which was $9,000. And I remember I had to sign for an apartment. I had nothing else, and I had to sign for an apartment. It was this tiny little a condo apartment at Young and Finch, and it was $970 a month, and I had to sign for 12 months. So I had nothing, right? Like, do the math, right? And I had my budget of $50 a month for food. I mean, it was insane. I'm going back like 30 years. But nothing, like, I was always positive about that. I was always like,
Huh.
my first job after 7 weeks, I got a job in an advertising agency, and they went bankrupt. And then I was selling advertising for a the yellow pages. Like I never looked at things badly. I always looked at things are like I'm working towards a better future. I always knew what I wanted. And there's that saying, I don't know, change your thoughts and you change your world. And
Mhm.
it's true. It's absolutely true. The difference is, though, Tom, is that a lot of people think and dream, but don't do. And I'm a doer. So I want to do something, I action it. So, yes, I'm a positive person, but I action things, which makes things come to life. So if you said you wanted to be I don't know, you wanted to be an actor in Hollywood, right? Like there will be your dream job one day, and people just sit and they don't get off their ass and do it. Then it's not going to happen. You know,
Mhm.
the universe will bring you stuff, but you got to act towards it. You've got to move towards it.
So, what do you think are some like, how did you manage to act when you were doing things that were new to you? How were you acting day to day? So for me, when we started this particular business, I had these little index cards, and every day I wrote down the top 3 things I had to do, as well as all the nonsense, like, the nonsense being renew driver's license, pay that bill, do
Right.
all the stupid stuff. But
Yeah.
like, here's the 3 things that were going to get me further ahead towards my goal. And those little index cards every day just kept me straight. Like, it kept me focused. It kept me on track. Were there some things just on a daily basis that helped you take action over your life, or just did you know what to do all the time?
I think, there's that, I mean, years ago when I was very active in running my businesses, there was I don't know if I'm getting it right, Covey's quadrants, and it was,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Stephen
used to
Covey's
use that. Yes,
four quadrants.
that's right.
Yes.
And I used to use that, but now I don't. Now it's like, okay, I'm at the stage of my life now where I only need to do things that will make me dance. And I got about, you know, let me just explain the situation. What actually amplified it more was 3 years ago, it was almost March 2020, when COVID first came out. I got it and I got really sick. There was no vaccines or anything at that
Mhm.
stage, but what happened was it triggered an autoimmune disease in me. And at the time, I was actually training to run my first marathon, and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called polymyalgia rheumatica. And until they diagnosed me, it took forever. But for about 4 weeks, I could not walk. I couldn't walk. I couldn't get out of bed. My daughters used to have to help me, carry me to the shower, to I couldn't sit down to on the toilet. And my entire love of my life is walking my dog on the
I
belt
can
line.
tell you've brought that up a few times. I can tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's the love of my life. And when that is taken away from you, it always says it always takes a tragedy to make people realize more. Um, that really definitely, escalated my desire to live life on my terms faster than I might have, and not worry so much about, having, X amount of money in the bank, or making sure that I have, 20 homes,
Mhm.
or I retire or something like that. So that escalated it. I think I digressed, and the question really was about, how do I just act? How do I just do things? I don't. I do things because I really want them, and if you really, you can have anything you want in life. You just got to want it. It's as simple as that. You could have everything you want in life. You just have to want it, and most people don't really want it, because if you really want it, you'll go do it, and it's that want.
Mhm. It does seem pretty obvious to me now that you can, looking back, I'm turning 50 right now, and it seems pretty obvious to me that, yeah, you're right. You can have really anything that you want. I feel like when you're younger, you kind of have these self-imposed barriers, but you almost want to be appointed. Like, I feel like in your 20s, I felt like somebody had to appoint me good enough, or even like starting this business to help people with real estate investments. I feel like early on, we almost felt like we needed somebody to appoint us worthy. Like, yes, you are good enough to help these Canadians do this. And you kind of have to fight that internal battle of like, because, you know, Nick and I had those thoughts, like, who are we to be telling people, even though we had been investing in real estate as a family and ourselves for decades, we were like, who are we to be helping these people? And you almost want some other third party to come and like tap you on the head and say, yes, you know, you are good enough to do it. But now I know, is if you want something, there's the only one stopping you is you. You just have to kind of push forward. It seems like naturally you take a lot of action. You don't need people to like lay down a blueprint for you. You'll just go out and do stuff, which, Corrine, I
Exactly.
think is rare. I think most people want the blueprint. Like most people
You know
want
what
the
I think?
safety rails of a blueprint to say, do this, this, and this, and you will be okay. Whereas I feel, and speaking with you and learning about your life, like moving from South Africa, $9,000, signing this rent, $50 a month in food, you just sound like you're just going to make it happen. You know, you're just going to kind of do it. And I got to give you a lot of credit to that. It's kind of inspiring to hear. So,
Yeah, I think, and I think there's a certain type of person. I've had this question so often where someone says, um, do you think there's certain characteristics or skill sets you need to be an entrepreneur? And you know, obviously risk averse and all that kind of stuff. But you know, belief is huge, right? And just believing in yourself. And you know, I hate when I hear people complain. Like, I was a single mother of 4 kids. I brought up 4 kids like on my own. And I ran multiple businesses and I had to take care of them emotionally and financially. And I'm no heroine. Like, I'm definitely not. And people say, but, and I was like, you just do what you have to do. I never used an excuse, you know, I never used an excuse to say, um, oh, you know, I have 4 kids, like I just can't start a business, or so, you know, it's just how you look at things, you know, it really is. And that's, you know, given me the impetus as well to, you know, live my life now at a young age, at 52, the way I want, because I worked the way I did and put all those hours in. And I never missed a thing of my kids. I never missed a parents' evening. I was home for dinner most nights. You know, when I traveled, I had my mom there, you know, so I don't think my kids did not lose out in any way. If anything, they probably respect and admire me more for that, you know. But then there were down times, Tom. I mean, it's not all great. Trust me, I had some really bad, hard times. I sold a business, a tech business, which wasn't structured properly. After the first year, they went bankrupt, so I never got paid out for that. Then I had problems in my market research business. I left it to start another business, and the guy I brought in ran it down to the ground. At one point, I had 2 months of like a run rate of 2 months with, you know, 45 employees. I mean,
oh,
like
wow.
nightmare
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Yeah.
can tell you, go
Yeah.
on. Not, it's not all, you know, and you know, so yeah, you know, and it's just how you deal with things. And I think maybe that is part of, I think I'm a fighter. And you know, as an entrepreneur, you need to be, you know, you need to, you know,
Yeah.
I would say
You
go.
remind me. Yeah. You're definitely a fighter. It's something I try to share with my kids all the time. I'm like, hey, you just got to go out there and do stuff without the mistakes. You don't have enough raw material to make good judgments. Like, you need a whole bunch of mistakes in life. Like, you kind of have to go out there
Well,
and screw up.
well,
If you don't screw up, you have no kind of guidepost to tell you what's right. Like, you can't
oh
just
my
always make
God, did I
right
screw up?
decisions. Yeah. So you just, and it sounds like you, that's the journey that I'm only laughing because we've all been there. Nick and I started this business in the basement of my house, licking envelopes on our hands and knees on a cement floor. Our marketing envelopes, you know, we put these brochures and we would
Yeah,
lick the
yeah.
envelope, and he would literally get mad at me if I was licking them too slow because it was late at night. We both wanted to go home, and we would start arguing over who was, we weren't even smart enough at first to get glue sticks for the envelopes. We were like licking the envelopes and sealing them, and we would get into arguments over who's licking envelopes faster. Like, this is just like the stupidity of that you go through in life on stuff. And they were bad arguments at one point. But anyway, I'm curious, you said at one point, and I want to ask what you're doing now
Yes.
in a minute, but another question first. You said the winters are getting tough. Where is someone like you going to end up? Where is the next? Because, you know, we've already decided Canada's amazing. We
Yes.
already, you've told me that Canada's amazing. I have to check myself. So Canada's amazing. But now I'm curious, what part of the world is
It's
attracting you? Is that something you can share or?
absolutely, it's Italy. There's no question. I will end up there. I actually went now to purchase property there, and it's a whole different story. But Italy is where I want to be. I love the people, I love the food, I love the geography. It's exceptionally cheap to live there. Property is so cheap. When I hear my friends buying cottages for $1 million, and I tell them, "Oh, I got a penthouse on the beach, for $60,000," and they're like, "No, you didn't." I'm like, "Yes, I did,"
Wow,
and I can go there all the time, right? So, um, also, I think I have my daughter studying in Europe now, and she wants to stay. So, I'm thinking
cool.
it's just Europe is probably where I'll end up. I'll always have a home here, no question about it, in Canada, but winters will be spent probably in Calabria.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I think I mentioned we go to Croatia for about a month every summer. We have a place on the coast there, a 2-bedroom condo. No penthouse, 2-bedroom condo, but it's nice. It's really nice. And I love it over there. The food quality and yeah,
Oh,
the pace of life. And sometimes I come back here and I think, oh my gosh, we're all kind of running in circles over here.
yeah.
And yeah, so wow, great choice. My wife's family is from Florence, Italy. And so when we go there and we get the behind the scenes tour of Florence and the food, yeah, amazing place. I did not think you were going to say Italy. I was thinking the classic like Costa Rica or I don't know, somewhere,
uh,
Panama or something, but Italy, great choice. I'm on board. I'm
Thank
on
you.
board,
Thank
Corrine.
you. Yeah.
So what are you? So I don't know what you're currently at. What are you up to now? Are you working? Because I know
So
you've been mentored. You've worked with business owners. You mentor. What are you doing right now?
I did a lot of work with mentoring startups when I had my tech company, at the digital DMZ and all the accelerators and incubators, and I worked there for 7 years helping them, and then I was enough of that.
I can tell by
Um,
your body language. It was enough of that.
it was enough of that. It was like I just yeah. Um, I have to tell you that I know we didn't even get to that, but when I got really ill, and I had to go into a lot of medication and that to help me. I couldn't work, and I stopped working, and I've got somebody else running, still the market research business. But if it wasn't for my real estate that I had, I wouldn't have been able to take all the time off and do what I was able to do. And um when I was, and I'll tell you how I got into it quickly,
Mm.
but my grandfather in South Africa owned a building in an area in Johannesburg, and he died when I was really young, and my dad used to look after the building. So my dad used to take me there. I used to get in the car with him, and we used to go there every Sunday, and he used to check on the building. And it was a hybrid, so it had retail at the bottom, and he'd buy me a little from the convenience store, there, a little lollipop, and I'd sit on the stairs while he walked around. And I would sit there and I would dream, and I'd be like, one day I'm going to own property like this. And that's where it all started. And the fact that I don't have to say this because I know you're in it, but it's the greatest asset class in the world. You do not need, you can be really and truly like biggest
Say it. You could
idiot.
say it.
You
Yeah.
could be the biggest idiot and make money on real estate. It's like, okay, this is how basic it is. Where in the world you get to buy something, get somebody else to pay for
With
it,
leverage. Yeah.
and when they finish paying for it, it's worth more than you bought it for. Okay, like not even from a cash flow. So I bought property and really did well years ago, and that's really what helped me. And then I decided that I'm going to buy a property one every year for the next 10 years, and I just
Oh,
started doing.
wow.
Um, and
Residential, commercial, does it matter?
residential,
Residential
single family residential, large lot sizes, smaller towns, growing population. Um,
that you rent. So they're rental property,
all
long-term
rental.
buy and hold rental properties. You
Yeah.
get a property manager to manage it. Do you manage it?
Florida, I hated my property managers. I manage it. It's really I buy well in terms of that. It's I make sure that there's nothing, listen, every now and then a toilet goes. I mean, how hard is it?
Sure. Yeah.
Find a
Yeah.
plumber in Ottawa, right? It
Yeah.
takes 2 seconds, and I enjoy
Mhm.
doing that, and I enjoy the relationship with my tenants. So, I just wanted to say that has really helped me, just considerably. And being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, you do not have no pension fund, and that to me was like, I have a great pension now because,
Well, it's
it's
funny you say that. We talk about, I think when I got introduced to real estate investing through books, our family had already been in it, but through the books, I was always told it was passive income. And I've always thought that's not quite right, because you do have to be involved. But what the beauty of real estate, I've almost felt like it tricked people in a positive way to become business owners, because they bought real estate because they thought they wanted some passive income or something. But it's a business. You have customers living in there. You're offering the service of shelter. But this business isn't just like a normal business where the operations of the business is typically what is valuable to most business owners, right? Like they know how to get customers and they sell them services and they do stuff. But real estate investing, you're offering the service of housing, but you have this hard asset built into the business where the bank will lend against it. The bank will refinance it. When you're a business owner starting a business from scratch, when you first go to the business, a bank in the first 2 or 3 years, they kind of laugh at your financials. They're like, listen, we're barely going to even increase your credit card limit. That's what Nick and they laughed at us, even though we paid every month on time. They're like, we're not going to increase your credit card limit to 15,000 a month. Are you guys crazy? But you go with a property and they're like, oh yeah, well, here's 50,000 more on a credit line. So like, it's this weird business that comes with the hard asset of the property, and it's just a thing of beauty. And you're right. Anyone can hold the real estate. And sometimes you do get into problems. You can't over leverage. Interest rates are going wild a little bit now. There are things to watch, but over the medium and longer term, it is quite a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And when I started to get into real estate, I decided, okay, I need to educate and learn everything, and was going to take courses and read
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
And I'm in research. And one thing I found was that, people overanalyze real estate. It's so simple. There's like, I started to learn, like, like work out my NOI and cap rates and all this. And I don't look at any of that. I look at three things. And that's it, Tom. I like, you know, is this area population growing, and why is it growing? What are the key industries in that area? Like that, I can see, like, there's steel plants and there's government, and the vacancy rate, and that's it for the area. And that's all I look at. And then I look at, as long as I've got to make a little bit of money every month, that to me is not important cash flow, because it's long term. But it's as simple as that.
Good for you. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was part of your story. Yeah, super
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a big part of my, and that's I think also why I was listening to a lot of real estate podcasts, and I couldn't, I have to be honest, I didn't like any of them, because
Yeah.
a lot of them were around, and that's why I love listening to yours. I'm not just saying it because I'm here with you, but
Oh, but
you
you turned mine off the other day. You said I was so negative. You shut me down. You were right in the middle of the walk. You're probably cursing me. You were probably cursing me right after.
But you know what? It wasn't you or somebody on your podcast that was being so negative as well.
Okay. Okay.
And I
Now
was
you're
like,
bringing somebody else in. Okay. Maybe it was the
okay, we
somebody
won't
else.
go there. We won't go there. We won't go there. But yeah, so and people were, and this is how I look at it. People were like, okay, listening to these podcasts, and you get these young guys,
Yeah.
24 years old, and they're like, I've got 200 doors
Yeah.
and
Oh,
all this. And I was like, it's so dangerous, that message, because I said, I was thinking, like, well, how many do you own? Because I look at it as though, like, for me, the way I think, if you haven't paid down 50% of your mortgage, then you don't own it. It's a liability. It's not an asset. That's just my thinking. So until I've done that, then I say, oh yeah, now I can say I got 3 or 4, whatever number of houses, because I know I have more equity in there than I owe the bank. And that's just my way of thinking, maybe more conservatively.
no, we're with you. I hated that language, doors. I think because of our
Oh, I
family's
hated it.
history in the 90s, and almost real estate taking us under bankruptcy, like losing our family home and like the whole bit, like brutal
Yeah.
90s situation. When I heard people talk about doors as I got into the real estate industry, it always just scared me. I'm like, I don't think you guys know or what you're talking about. Like you could be over leveraged. You are dangerous. And it's not just about how many properties are under your name? Are you managing it properly? Can you handle the ups and the downs? Can you go through a
Yeah.
down cycle and survive? This
Yeah.
game's about survival more than about how many, right? So that's kind of amazing that you figured that out, Corrine. That's
Yeah, and I think it was just not going into too much of the analytics and listening.
mhm.
And, I think maybe I started getting into real estate much later in my life. So I had been through all the bullshit and listened to all the crap, and I could just,
You
get rid
you
of
could
it.
tell
So
it was
that was
crap.
maybe, I could tell it was it was
Yeah.
crap. Been there, done that, fallen on my ass.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
next.
Yeah, it's
So
funny you say
yeah,
that because sometimes actually Nick is just meeting with someone right now as we're recording this, and I went in to say hi, and they had a couple quick questions for me. They're like friends of friends, and I just broke it down just like you're breaking it down because they were asking me, is there a magic number, a capitalization rate, or this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the rent? What city am I in? What's the rent? What are the expenses that I can control? And that's pretty much it.
yeah,
Just like,
no,
and hang on
yeah.
for dear life, and then hang on for dear life. Like hang on and get through the ups and downs. And if you have to make a service call or a maintenance call, like hang on for dear life. But
Yeah, and just know what some of your key things are. Like, I'm looking in Sault Ste. Marie now, and one of the things I just learned was that your house, don't buy a house that doesn't have a frost wall. Now,
mhm.
I never knew what a frost wall was before, so this is great, right? You
Yeah,
learn
yeah.
this, right? So now I know. Like, the first thing I was like, if it doesn't have a frost wall, I don't even bother going to see it, right? So
And I'm sure there'll be some things in Italy that you'll learn about. By the way, our place in Croatia took us 4 years to close. So another positive thing about Canada is that
yeah,
Canada has one system to find all the real estate you could ever want. You can,
yeah,
the lawyers and the banks all work together and it beautifully happens. You can close on a property in 30 days quite easily in this country. In Croatia, it took us 4 years to get that closed properly. And it was just, there were some circumstances that were unique to that particular property, but
yeah.
still 4 years.
Oh, I can
Right.
believe that. Oh,
So,
I can
so
believe it.
there you
Yeah,
go. See, I'm pro Canada. I'm pro Canada right there,
there
Corrine.
you go. You're pro Canada. You're Canadian. Your
What,
kids are Canadian,
what
right?
are you, so what are you up to? Are you working with people right now? Or are you not? What are you up
No,
to right now?
yeah. So I mean, really, I manage my real estate. And I'm constantly also looking for new things. There's a lot of opportunity now. I mean, everyone's running away because they're scared of the interest rates. I run towards, right? When people I'm running towards. I think there's huge opportunity now for real estate, if anything. And so that that's I'm still, I a little bit in my research business here and there where I can, and other than that, just really enjoying it. It's the first time all my kids are off at university, all of them. So I'm just enjoying my time now.
Awesome.
I read a lot. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome, Corinne.
yeah.
You seem, just speaking to you, you seem like you're in a good place, So, and I know we all have different things we're always battling. I just mean in general, you seem, just speaking to you, you seem like you're in a really good
I'm in
place.
a
And
great place. I'm
yeah,
in a great place now. I really am, and I'm so fortunate. And you need to be humble in life. I don't ever forget for 1 second, how things can turn. But as a mother, and I can probably say this as a father, I say you can only be as happy as your least happy child,
oh,
and that is
wow.
so true. And when I see all my four kids happy,
Mhm.
nothing else in the world matters, and I really put that into perspective, because if you have a kid that's struggling somehow, it's very hard for you as a parent to be fulfilled in any way or happy. And I'm just, that to me, I'm so grateful for that. I managed to bring up four, pretty average kids who were able to go to university and college, and avoid any major crisis. It's yeah.
They're going to be able to update their LinkedIn profile with the degree or the call diploma, Oh boy, very good. Congratulations, Corrine. Pleasure getting to know you a little better. And if someone does want to reach out to you, is there a way, or right now, no, there's just no way what would be the way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what
I don't know. Someone listening to this, who knows who's listening to this? None of us, we
Of
don't
course
even
they
know who's.
can. Of course they can. I love meeting new people. I love meeting new people all the time. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, I'm at Corrine Sandler at me.com. My name at me.com. If anybody
Sure.
wants to reach out or chat to me, etc. in any way. But Yeah, I mean, it was great talking to you, and yeah, hopefully there's some.
Oh yeah, no, this
Yeah,
was wonderful. Thank you for taking a leap of faith and doing this without knowing us. I really, really appreciate this, Corrine. I really
yeah,
do. I
it
mean,
is a
thank you. Real pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for sharing a bit of your story. I feel like there's so much more to your story, but thank you for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
okay. Yeah, lovely to meet you too, Tom. My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.